We were having a discussion. Sorry, were you just about to say something?
I was just about to say something.
So sorry.
No, I was just saying that I've been talking of the peroxide. I've been desperately looking online. You can't find, I don't know if it's been scrubbed, your 1978 Wrigley's commercial.
No, it doesn't exist. Because commercials, as we all know, they hire 10 different people to do it, and the winner goes on the air. And they spend a lot of money on other versions, and this was a lost other version. The client, Wrigley's, just, I don't know. And so it went into a vault never to be seen again.
Oh, wow.
Many have tried to find it.
We're sure that Miles didn't have something to do with that, making sure it stayed in the vault.
It's buried, isn't
Who?
it?
Yeah.
Miles buried it.
No, Miles wouldn't have buried it. Miles would have put it out there. I think Doris Sting would have, for some reason, he was ouchy about that.
Well, there's still the one, you can see a nanosecond of him in the Triumph bra commercial.
Oh, great. Has that been found? Hopefully that has been found.
What happened? What was that about?
Could you send me that one? I'd like to have that in my collection.
It's on YouTube. It was when I typed in Police 1978 Ringo commercial.
That guy.
It came up with the Triumph.
Did you do the bra commercial? Is that what you did?
Nobody was interested in my bra
Sting
commercial.
was the only person who looked good in one.
That's right. But his wife was an actress, and her agent, Pippa Markham, took one look at the husband and said, well, let's send him to the audition for the modeling, for anything. And he would show up for something and get the gig because, that golden ray of light coming from the heavens descending upon his magnificent brow.
Well, it's what
Clients
you saw
love
as
that.
well, isn't it? Fair enough.
Yeah.
It's what you saw.
That's what I saw. When I first saw him, there it was, shaft, light. And besides, he could sing and play bass and had a cool-looking amp.
What is it?
You're in.
What is it? What was the charisma? What could you bottle that? Could you put a?
I can remember it distinctly as just being meal ticket.
Is it confidence? Do you think it's the confidence that's
Swagger? Yeah, there's a swagger to it. And even though when we were playing punk music, the first year and a half, it was all my crap songs. my 2 chords and crap bass line with yelling. Yeah. And he hadn't started to write yet. And yet we stuck together.
You mean Clown's Revenge couldn't have got to
I played
every
him.
breath you take level.
Clown's Revenge was one of the songs I played him when he came down to London. I talked to him on the phone, and he came down to London, came over, and I played him. This is the material. I got this band. I hadn't yet found a guitarist, which meant that I got me, and I'm planning to find a guitarist. But since you can play bass and sing, that takes care of that. Any old guitarist who can play 3 chords is fine.
Yeah.
But he heard my demos, which I've listened to recently, and not incredibly impressive. I think it was the fast talk.
Yeah. Listen, I just wanted to, before we get properly into the Police and everything, and we were just having a discussion on our intro about, we mentioned Harry Belafonte, obviously, and we mentioned
Police, Harry Belafonte.
Well, he having just died, we mentioned that it was the first million-selling album, Calypso. And then there was a bit of a discussion about the first million-selling songs. And the first one, do you know?
No, I don't.
Glenn Miller.
Good for him. String of Pearls,
Choo-choo.
Chattanooga Choo-choo, of course.
And then the other one was 16 Tons.
16 tons and a da-da-da-da.
But I couldn't remember.
Well, you guys can both sing.
Who recorded it?
No idea.
Tennessee Ernie Ford.
Well, even if I had known that, I wouldn't have remembered it.
But
or even if I'd remembered it, I wouldn't have known that name.
To be fair, that was a Google discovery.
Yeah, well,
okay.
He had Ford. He did have Ford.
The beginning of pop music. This was the beginning, wasn't it? Of folk
I thought
music.
it was Fats Domino.
Well,
was the first recorded backbeat. And I can't remember what the song was, but my research turned up Fats Domino recording in New Orleans was the first rock riff. That's,
really? Well, no, that's probably
Can
true.
we borrow your researcher?
That's probably true.
And also, the other link, of course, the Police played the Banana Boat song, didn't you? Apparently.
Well, no, Sting would, because of his background on playing the cruise ships, which is where he learned his craft, by the way. A lot of times, stern employment.
No, hang on, I didn't know that.
What craft was it exactly?
Songwriting.
The cruise ship. Cruising. Exactly.
No, how songs are constructed. Verse, chorus,
Yeah,
verse,
I thought
chorus.
you meant sea craft. Sorry.
Yeah, right. No, he was forced to learn the hit. And, this is my thesis, is that sometimes, I was a film composer for 20 years before the master, hired gun, flinty-eyed. You want happy, I'll give you happy. You want sad, I'll give you. You want happy, sad, I can do that. And that's not an artist, that's a craftsman. And as a craftsman, you have to go places that you would never go as an artiste. One thing for me was when the director turns around, Francis Coppola turns around, we need strings. Fine. And so began a lifelong adventure with orchestra, which came out of stern employment. And so for Stingo, playing the hits on a cruise ship taught him, because he was a jazz guy, he had no interest in that music at all, but it taught him the construction of a pop song, what the pieces are. And it kind of went into his thing, and he never would have dreamed of dredging it out until the wheel turned and Prague was out and short, pungent songs were in. And I think that stern employment from his past stood us all well.
But I think the thing that's fascinating about Sting's songs, and it probably comes from that, and it's a level. Listen, I think he's one of the greatest songwriters of all time. We all know that.
You want to see my car?
There's always a level of storytelling that is not personal. He's not really. It's putting himself in another persona, in another character, usually dark.
Well, there is some darkness there. There is pain in that heart. He is the king of that stuff, by the way.
King of pain.
Yeah, and I think that's where it comes from. That I'm just a loosey goofy guy, I bang stuff. I just sure I can bang away on a riff, but to create those lyrics needs a deeper perspective on life. And like, as you very cleverly notice, he dodges the bullet. It's not about me. It's not I love you. It's someone else loves someone. And he presents it in a way that everyone can identify with, but he kind of, every breath you take is someone else being a voyeur, even though it's in first person singular.
Yeah.
But yeah, he
I always thought that was him.
You did.
Because punk was always, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that.
It was negatives. That's the whole thing.
I actually do know who and what that was about, and it wasn't him.
No,
And I tell him.
Oh.
We're good chuckle buddies here, but there's a camera rolling.
But when
were you offering to?
No.
Okay. All right.
Well, I mean, I can
know.
tell you that it's his favorite feature of the song. Not only that it's the biggest selling single ever, the most airplay, radio played song ever when you combine the Police version and the Puff Daddy version. His favorite thing, apart from that, is that people tell him that they play it at their weddings. And it's like, but really? Have you actually listened to the lyric? But he loves that fact. And many of his songs actually have a hidden meaning. I think they're about this because I only, like I say, I'm only looking at the back of his head. I'm not sure what he's singing about. But many of the times I've thought the song was about this, but actually it's about that.
Yeah.
That's very common with songs, isn't it? But here's the thing. But the reason that songwriting got to take flight was one thing that comes over from the bit of the diaries we've seen is that it was you putting your foot down about punk.
Yes,
being punk.
I was the punk Ayatollah. I was the Taliban of punk in the group, and they all, in their autobiography since, they all talk about, well, Stewart was just on this mission. He was foaming at the mouth with this whole punk thing. True. But that was our meal ticket. There were no other gigs. There was no other scene. There was, we weren't going to get airplay.
And it was early, but it was early. You were hip to it.
76. And through 77, and we starred through all those years until Andy joined. And for some reason, Sting and I stuck together in spite of, we were very codependent in those days. We had a rhythm section. We knew that we rocked, and we got a lot of gigs as session players. And but we just soldiered on in spite of being spotted by the critics as carpetbaggers.
Yeah, when you say carpetbaggers, I mean, I like this. I like the Sting came down from Newcastle. It's the same journey that Bruce Welch and Hank Marvin.
Sounds like something from a folk song.
Yeah,
Sting came down from Newcastle.
Hi ho,
not as good as the one Sting would write though. No, but it's almost like that journey down to London was so important in those days. It's not anymore. People could make music everywhere, but London was the centre of everything, wasn't it?
I thought he came because I called him and summoned him, and he came to my door. No, he came down.
He wasn't part
anyway.
of the Jarrow March.
No, he came down anyway. He came down
barefoot.
Yeah.
But there's a great bit in the diary where you talk about that first moment he comes into your room where the drum kit is.
Yeah. And we just blaze, and he wrote the same thing in his diary, that moment was like, damn, this is the musician I've been waiting for. And we just went off into places. And we eventually did kind of grow in different directions, and we were not so codependent anymore. But when we first started out, all we had was each other, and no songs, no Roxanne, no Message in a Bottle, no Every Breath You Take. He hadn't started writing them yet.
So what were you playing?
When you're saying that,
we were playing Clown's Revenge
songs, but was he not writing music at all?
He had a couple of retreads from his
bass instrumental, like sort of Autumn Leaves, or kind of.
No, he had some retreads that he sped up from his jazz band, and his Newcastle jazz band, Last Exit. And there were a few, but they weren't the ones you remember now. They were sort of in that ilk 2 chord, because our guitarist could only play 3 chords, which I showed him. And so but once again, that plus the cruise ships, plus being forced into this distilled, no song longer than 2.5 minutes, straitjacket, kept him kind of bottled up. But we were a great rhythm section. We just fit together with cool grooves, and we got a lot of work. And one of the sessions that we showed up for, the guitarist walks in, triple scale, legendary guitarist who probably cost the boss more than us two put together, but times 10, walks in, name of Andy Summers. And we play this kind of prog material. Mike Howlett was the boss. And
how you came up the other week.
Well, it was his solo album. For some reason he wanted 2 basses. Go figure.
I see.
Wow.
Go figure. 2 basses, you'd like that.
I've tried it. I was in a band with youth with 2 basses. It's a disaster.
It's a disaster.
It's the worst idea ever.
But as we're driving home, and we're going places that we never allowed ourselves to go with the Police because we were a punk rock band.
So the 3 of you were
No,
playing
just
on
Sting
that.
and I.
So is that,
Yes, the 3 of us, including Andy, who
so
we
that
just
record's
met
out
that day.
Yeah, it's out there.
20 years later, I get a call from Mike Howlett saying, remember that album that we recorded? Do you mind if I release it? I said, dude, you paid me 20 quid. It's your record. What he was really asking about, can I use the word police in the title? Right. So he released it, Police Academy. And that's exactly what it is. You can hear that rhythm section, and Andy, you can hear the Police, but we're playing nothing like the music we were playing at the time. It was prog with lots of drum fills.
And are you feeling unleashed? Is it
unleashed?
Like,
exactly. And so driving home that night, Sting is seething. His musicality is just rising up. I understand that this is our mission and everything, but God, don't just a couple notes of music, please. Oh Lord, can we get that guy? Come on, Stewart, get that guy. And we can't afford him. I could indulge his fantasy.
Why was he expensive? What was the?
Well, he was.
And it was a
triple scale, top jobbing.
Because he's older than you
He was
guys,
doing
isn't
things
he? 10 years
like John
older.
Lord's solo stuff. He was doing all sorts of.
And Neil
Is Andy 80 now?
Savoy Brown.
Yeah, all kinds of stuff. Animals.
What's he?
So
he was older. He's a 60s player.
That's right.
Wasn't he? Yeah.
That's right. And he'd been around the block. He had a huge musical education.
There's no question that Andy's style must have influenced Sting's songwriting.
It wouldn't have happened. I'd have lost him, for one thing. So we're driving home, and he's seething, and I'm kind of humoring him because I know we can't afford it. It's not going to happen. But we played a show with Mike Howlett in Paris, and we played a show at the Marquee, and Andy jumped on the stage, and we were kind of circling, and could no, he's not. Finally, one day, Andy popped the question. He was talking to Sting and said, let's do it. And I ran into him that same afternoon at Oxford Street Tube Station.
Hence one train later.
And he pulls me into a cafe and he says, dude, you and that bass player, he didn't use the word dude, whatever the 70s version of dude was.
Squire.
Dear boy.
Squire.
Dear boy, yeah.
Geezer.
You and that bass player have got something, but you need me in the band and I accept. Now, Andy objects fiercely when I tell this story, but it's so Andy, and it's so who he is. He's direct, straight to the point. That's his thing, and which I admire. And I'm going, dear boy, we don't have a record company. I'm the record company. Illegal Records is just me with a letra set. We don't have a management company. That's just me with my.
We had one of those,
with
but
Miles's
For
Rolodex.
coffee jars, it was used in my parents' house. The lecture set.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
And we don't have any roadies either. Yeah, we do. You. And I was just because I knew that this is great and everything, but he's not gonna last. And years later, recently, I asked him. Now I can use the word dude. Dude, what were you thinking? Joining a couple of fake punks, scorned by all, although he probably didn't know that, of a punk band going nowhere with no Roxanne, no Message in a Bottle, no material apart from Clown's Revenge. What were you thinking? And he says, I don't know, mate. Should have stuck with Neil Sedaka.
Brilliant. But as well, because that first time he played, he just got up for an encore or something, didn't he?
Yeah, he got up.
I love that and it's.
I've got the recording, by the way.
No one younger would understand how seismic this is because it seems such a ridiculous detail, but is that he was wearing flares?
Yes, he cut it. Well,
it's like, oh my god.
I don't understand why you wanted him in the band then.
Because honestly, play music.
Because you're already kind of trying to sneak under the radar and pretend you're punks.
We were already written off, and we just wanted to play some music. We just wanted to do some interesting stuff. And Henry, bless his heart, he could play those guitar licks really forcefully, had a great presence on stage, but just, oh Lord, could we just play some music for a living?
But what would it be that would qualify you to play punk gigs? What element did you have to add? Were you insistent on?
A desire to do so, and a spotting of the fact of that was it. There was this party we threw. We were in a squat in Mayfair at the time, and I
want to get onto that because this is This is the stuff that fascinates me. That flat.
Okay,
but go on, carry on.
Well, it was a very fancy flat that we were squatting in. It full of bohemian grandeur with chandeliers and wood paneling and exotica climbing up the walls, and it's pretty fancy. So when Sting came over, he said, "Wow, this looks pretty high." He was fooled by the fact that I didn't tell him right away that we were squatting.
Right. He thought it was yours.
And anyway, our friend who was Luke O'Reilly, who was managing Al Stewart, throws a party for his client at our splendiferous flat. Meanwhile, I'm up in Sheffield playing with Curved Air, and we drive down, or whatever city, we drive down that night. And as we arrive in silent, quiet Mayfair, and we could hear the party from blocks away. And we can hear it's coming from, that's our apartment. My brother Ian knew how to throw a party. Mm-hmm. He was the expert DJ. He just could read the room and had a personality out to hear. And so we get up there and it's blazing. What is that music? And we get in there, and it turns out that some of the youngsters who were there were Paul Cook, and Steve Jones and Glenn Matlock. I didn't identify them yet at the time, but there were these kids there.
You knew Jones had been there when some stuff went missing.
Yeah, there was a hat, and I looked out the window. I saw him walking off, wearing the hat. Hey, you! But this wild party was going, and all the Al Stewart glamourati in their bell-bottoms and sophistication, and they would have been dancing suavely like that until these kids showed up with their own records and start putting them on, and Ian could see the room light. Yeah, a lot more of that. What else you got? And so they're out there just burning everything down. And so by the time I got there, the party was in raging swing with two camps. Sort of the sophistos were kind of off in the corner disapproving and saying, that's not music, and these young kids who I don't even know if they were called punks yet, the look hadn't quite, but they were just this vertical dance.
It's not the year of the cat anymore.
No, it was The Blank Generation, I think, was by Richard Hell. That was the main tune of the night.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that explosion there with my brother Ian, who was an agent also, and me, and Miles as well, spotted, that's the next big thing. That's what's happening, because we were all aware there was the crash of vinyl prices and explosion of vinyl prices, crash of the music industry, and everything came tumbling down. But that scene was thriving, kicking, and you could do it yourself. You didn't need to go to the man. You didn't need to go to the record company. It was like a self-starting scene, and that just looks really cool. So that was when we spotted, okay, the Copeland family is getting into this business.
You wanted to mention the squat.
I want about this flat. When you say it was a squat, that's not strictly true, is it?
Well, we were squatting. That's true.
Well, that's come from his "wanna be a punk" era.
Well, okay.
Yeah, no, I've met quite a few
Since you
people in my
insist,
time who lived in squats that sort of.
My father had a friend.
The trust owned.
But it was some socialite friend of your dad.
That's right. Who wanted to get rid of her other lodgers, so nothing stopping her from inviting a few more. So,
And as the book suggests, I did Google Lady Georgina
yes,
Campbell.
that's a story.
Wow.
That's a story.
Tell us more. Who's going to tell us the intimate details?
Stuart.
Go ahead.
Stuart?
No, well, she was. I can't remember where she was born, but she was born with some weird fused genitals, and so was raised as a boy. And then this caused a great. I can't remember all the history, but she became a lady because she was married to someone for like 15 days or something.
Yeah, they got her a title.
Yeah, got a title, and then ended up, and then she was the one person who you just couldn't.
All the
prize
rest,
out of
they
this.
took a look at us and left. And I was there with my brother Ian and Sonia Christina. And we moved in, and we threw these wild parties, and she could not shake her. In fact, after, particularly wild, noisy parties, Ian would wake up and his hangover, and she had a nice glass of water with an aspirin that she had left for him. Take that, motherfucker. Right. Who's going to win this test of wills? But we did suspect that Sonia was being secretly nice to her, because she's like that.
Sisterhood.
Yeah.
Right,
But eventually she did leave. And when the room she moved out of, I moved in all my drums and my gear and the PA and the amps, and that's where the Police rehearsed. And that's where we began, is in that squad.
That is amazing, because I remember when I was a kid that time, it was just possible you knew people who just ended up in amazing parts of London, in amazing flats, for sort of weird, nothing to do with money or anything.
Yeah, just knew somebody for some reason.
That's just when I first met Steve Strange. He was living in some rich French guy's house in Chelsea with Oliver Tobias.
Yeah.
So I suddenly, found myself walking into interiors that I could, I'd never even imagined existed. I spent the rest of my life trying to recreate.
You just remember that Steve Strange pad.
And also, I just wanted to also, there was something in the diary that that rung a bell as well, because after you have this moment with Sting and there's just the two of you and you're jamming on your first moment together, you go off and see Generation X at the
we went out to the Roxy that night.
I was at that gig. I was in that room.
And Billy Idol killed it. I mean,
This is it, because that's the thing.
He couldn't sing worth a darn.
Yes, but
he just had that. He had also a golden ray of.
But I think that Sting must have. You're playing with Sting, and you guys have got something going. Then you go to see that gig, and you've got, I thought at the time, and proven right, this great peroxide pop star. Was burgeoning
He was just
at the Roxy.
Gary, are you suggesting the peroxide?
Well, I'm suggesting the whole thing that Sting, who's a jazzer, goes along to see Generation X and Billy Idol, and he goes, maybe this is right. This is what I should be doing. I can do that.
Well, it wasn't out of admiration, but yes, he did have that exact epiphany. But it wasn't, wow, that's so great, I want to do that.
Right.
No,
it was like, that'll work.
I could do that in a heartbeat. Man. Look at all these kids around. Look at all these minnows around here. Let's eat them all. And that was pretty much our attitude.
And he's handsome, my God. They were both handsome. And handsome gets you in rooms and in the charts.
Yeah.
And when you were looking back in those diaries, and were there surprises for you? Has this been, because the last time we spoke to you, you hadn't even dug these out, and were there epiphanies for you?
The main one was how hard we worked. And the days begin. Wake up, drive over to Putney, pick up the gear, go pick up Sting, drive up to St. John's Wood to get my drums, drive down to Mano's rehearsal to rehearse for 4 hours, drop the gear back over at so-and-so's place, pick up the PA, go down to the NME to hustle for some ink. Just mission after mission, crisscrossing London every day. And then down to the Vortex to see, the Vibrators. And then after that, over to the 100 Club to see someone else. And then, just the pace of it and the struggle of it. And the thing that makes the struggle so poignant is that we didn't have those songs yet. What was it that stuck us together? Because, of course, you can imagine everybody was whispering in Stingo's ear, hey.
So what was your set list?
The set list, it's in the book, actually.
Mother?
Not Mother. No, we hadn't yet reached that elevated state of musicality. Clown's Revenge, Landlord. They're all crap songs that I wrote, just utilitarian. Here's E, E, A, A, D, 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 E. Okay, let's start with D this time. D, D, A, just riffs with yelling. And he started by replacing some of the lyrics and writing some lyrics. I think Dead End Job might have been his. No, Landlord. He took my bass line and came up with a different lyric.
Not Landlord's Revenge.
Yeah, Landlord's Revenge. And then not too impressive catalog of material, but sort of interesting to look back on now. And I've got these recordings of our first rehearsals with Sting on the mic and singing some songs that later became Clark Kent songs. I'm particularly proud of those recordings.
People get precious about who's the songwriter in the band. Oh, hello, did I say that?
Should we recut that with me saying that, Gary?
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean.
Yeah,
I mean, listen.
Can the non-major songwriters have a little moment here?
Even now, in Pink Floyd and people, everyone's trying to claim that song and who was really at the heart of it. And was there for you though that sort of like fear that this guy's going to come along and I'm not going to be the songwriter?
No, not at all. I'm a younger sibling, happy to be just on the team. I wrote these songs so that we'd have something to play. And so I could tell them, yeah, we got material. And I played him these crap demos that I made myself on guitar and stuff. And that didn't send him running, which is another miracle. And so I think the first one he brought was Visions of the Night. Not one of the big Police songs that anyone remembers, but it was a total upgrade. Wow, let's play that. And then he came up with
doesn't scream punk though. Doesn't
No,
it?
no. He had another one which had
I
some
don't
airy
want
fairy
Visions
title.
of the Night.
Yeah. Well, he had some other song with an airy fairy title, which was a retread from his jazz band. It said, we're going to call it 3 o'clock shit. And he said, okay. But then he would mumble the lyrics so that nobody would know he was deep. But one by one, his songs would come in, and each time that was the best song on our list. And I never noticed that as these songs would arrive, that song would depart. I didn't care. All I wanted was us to have fantastic material to play, and he delivered. It wasn't until we actually made the album and were doing the credits, that was the first time I even noticed. But even then, it didn't really, it wasn't a big deal.
I feel that Andy's has this extraordinary guitar playing, doesn't he? I mean, this arpeggiation, this the palmed mute.
The guy who put nines into
rock
new
music.
Wave. Yeah.
He really did, actually, even though it's the 70s, he set the sound for the 80s, didn't he?
Yeah. Well, with his soundscape. It wasn't just diddle-diddle-diddle. It was a warrior.
That was the thing that
it was a soundscape.
The Police had. It was that I loved. I mean, I kind of forget first time hearing Walking on the Moon. It was just this hugeness.
Because there's compression, massive compression.
Yeah.
But there's the most overused cliche in all of music is that thing of it's not what you play, it's what you don't play. But the Police are actually the only real living example.
We
of
used
that
to say
working,
all the time, less is more.
You don't play the one.
Huh?
You didn't play the one.
Who needs one when there's a perfectly good 3 coming right up?
Exactly.
That's right.
Just hold it. 2, 3, 4.
It's just
2,
like buses.
3,
you wait
4.
for one and then 3 come along all at once.
There you go.
Was there a moment when you look back in these diaries and you can sense, we were going to give up then?
Well, Mike Howlett called with Andy Summers, and he had the band that we were supposedly being was Strontium 90, which I thought was kind of a cool name.
That was a very cool name, by the
And
way.
he changed it to The Elevators. Not a great name.
Then you're up against the Manchester lot, which was Mick Hucknall's band was Frantic Elevators.
Oh, okay, much better name. But I thought that I'm going to lose my band and we're all going to become part of Mike's band. That was the closest we ever came because of the magnet of Andy. Fortunately, Andy made his choice and decided to go with the 2 fake punk rockers rather than Prog Mike, who had quite good material. But Andy just saw these.
Then went on to be Mr.
guys.
80s pop anyway, didn't he? Flock of Seagulls. We were talking about him a couple of weeks ago. Who was it he produced?
Yeah, I can't remember. It's our listeners will know.
They'll
Let us know rudely.
Oh God, no.
Yeah, they'll be on the mail.
Yeah, Twitter abuse.
But go to
I forget where we were at, but really...
Yeah, no, I'm really looking at about that giving up moment.
That giving up moment. But fortunately, Andy chose, I discovered Sting and Andy discovered us.
Yeah.
And fortunately, that was one of the times. Billy Ocean offered him a gig for £50 a week, which was big money in those days. Yeah.
But I guess what was so good about the Police and why it worked in the end, and the cream rose to the top, didn't it? Of punk. But is you were a little bit older and you still had one toe in that
in actual music.
past.
Yes.
That everyone was trying to say was full of dinosaurs and didn't, mean
boring
anything.
old farts.
Boring old farts. It's actually interesting that because look at us. We all went through punk. I remember taking my records and selling a lot of them. And then having to buy them back. And then
It serves you right.
And then people saying, punk is for the people. And it's about the kids and the trouble is
invented
the
by
past.
Vivian Westwood.
Yeah, exactly. A designer.
Well,
King's
exactly.
Road
It's
shop.
an
Yeah.
extremely expensive uniform you can buy
We
on
know
King's
that.
Road.
Yeah, absolutely. But it was young people making prog. It wasn't old people making prog, was
Well,
it?
young people was making something, and as far as behind the actual music, behind the actual style, was the do-it-yourself vibe of it. We didn't need to go to Decca, which was Curved Air's record company, and ask for a favor to put us into a studio. You could do it all yourself. I borrowed 400 quid from a friend, Paul Mulligan. We went to Pathway Studios.
That's where we went, yeah.
Yeah.
Pathway.
And where The Damned and Elvis Costello.
Dire
and-
Straits.
Dire Straits, really.
Well, they're Sultans of Swing. They recorded
What do you
at Pathway, and then they tried to make it better in another studio later, and they couldn't. They put the demo
Is
out.
there a plaque? There needs to be a plaque.
No, it's not there anymore.
No, but a plaque.
On
Yeah.
Pathway Studio should have a plaque, but
Yeah.
the
In
studio's not there
Islington,
anymore.
wasn't
Like
it?
we went
Somewhere
to
in
we went to
Islington?
Sigma Sound in Philadelphia,
Yeah.
and our big pilgrimage, and it's a car park.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
with
There's a
plaque.
post or something, there's a little sign.
it sounds like
He says plaque. I say plaque.
this historical place was smaller than this room.
I lost my dentist.
I've got
Yeah.
terrible plaque.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry, Stu.
That studio where all that stuff happened was about half the size
It
of
was.
this room.
Yeah, it was.
And the control room was a broom closet, and yet so much great stuff came out of that room.
Probably because of that. That's because you have that. It's a weird mindset of studios, isn't it? Is that you think of them as being these incredibly posh places?
No,
But
not that one.
But there were the fact that there was enough of a business to support all
Yeah.
these, that people could set up these little places.
Baza was the engineer. Remember him?
Oh, really? Oh, I'm glad you reminded
Baza.
me. Baza.
I have no visual memory of him, but I do remember the name.
Were you with Sonia at the time? Were you with Sonia when you left?
The whole time, yeah.
And how did she feel about you leaving? Because obviously in the diaries there's stuff about
I mean, left what?
left their band.
The Curved Air?
Yeah.
No, Curved Air just kind of fizzled out.
Oh, right.
And I don't even recall when it ended. Just there were no dates on the date sheet. We could feel the entropy of the whole prog world in general, and Curved Air specifically. We could just feel it, just running out of gas. And then this new thing happened, and I was all into setting up this new band and the DIY aspect of it, which meant that I could just borrow some money from a friend. We record the record. I designed the record sleeve myself with Letraset. I don't know if any of you are listening. Yeah, they're all our age. They might remember Letraset.
we all had
And then I made the thing and misspelled it, and then had to do it, And it was complete. And then I would print I took the tape and had it printed into 2,000 singles, and I learned later that if I had the singles printed first, deliver them to RCA, who's pressing the record, they will put the record into the sleeves. But I didn't do that, so we got 2,000 white sleeves, and Sting, Henry, and I, and Miles actually, was sitting at the Marlboro Place, pulling it out of the white sleeve, putting into a picture sleeve, pulling out of the white sleeve, putting into a picture sleeve.
So that was your Blue Monday, wasn't it? When it ended up costing more than.
Yeah. Well, I ended up with these boxes of records, which I would sell using Miles's office, and I'd get on the phone and sell to record stores in Birmingham, Leeds, whatever. And the conversation would go, well, is it punk? Yes. Has it got a picture sleeve? Yes. Is it hostile? Yes. Box of 25. Box of 25, please.
Yeah.
Easy peasy. Yeah. And because the record stores would say that, look, we've been selling records all this time, but we have a rack called, the kids would come and say, where's the punk? And they'd go over to the punk rack. They'd never heard any of the records because there's no airplay. They would look at the sleeves, say, yep, hostile, and buy it. And that's pretty much, we actually got royalties. I'd never got royalties from Curved Air.
Right. It had to look like a hostage letter, didn't
That's
it?
right,
Punk
yeah.
sleeve.
That's
Yeah,
right,
well, it was
yeah.
Jamie Reed who came up with the hostage writing, but because it also it's because like you say, because the thing is, because punk, no one had heard it, it just existed in the music papers, and it was really
That's
interesting
right.
what you were saying earlier about your crisscrossing town
Yeah.
in your day involved going to the NME offices,
Oh,
and that's the one
absolutely.
thing. Well, it's going to be the one form of media where, and every band will tell you this, you just went there to get in the
Those-
paper. You went there,
Yeah,
Bastards.
Yeah.
That's like getting
Neil.
Instagram to put your reel out on the front page.
On Longacre,
isn't it?
down in Soho. That's where they were.
I remember they were in Carnaby Street.
Well, there was Enemy, Melody Maker, and Sounds, and I forget which office was
Danny
which.
Baker on the front desk.
Yeah.
I think maybe that was a bit after that.
But the Enemy carved us up rotten. And years later, when we did our big reunion tour in 2007, and the world was at our feet, and we are now, hey, Mr. Enemy, I'll give you an interview. And fully intending to abuse the guy and do everything with a journalist you're not supposed to do because I don't care. Problem was, Enemy declined. You bastards! 30 years later!
But what was your audience though? Was it the same audience that went to the Vibrators gig or the Sex
Yeah,
Pistols
our
gig?
audience was mostly members of the other bands who were copying licks. Sparsely attended shows. Occasionally we would get a halfway decent review.
Paul
Begrudgingly.
Simonon turned up, and Paul Simonon turned up at some point. And
I remember when we went down to play in France at the Mont-de-Marsan festival. I got the name right. Anyhow, this festival, all these London punk bands, including The Clash, were on the bus, and Paul Simonon kind of, without Joe catching it, was actually asking Sting about, should the finger be like that or should it be horizontal? He actually gave a shit about his instrument. He wanted to be a good musician.
yeah.
I'm wearing his watch. He gave me this watch.
Oh, I thought you were telling me to hurry up. We're finished. The pub's open.
Well, some of those punk rock musicians, in spite of their stance, actually were kind of into music and wanted to be good. It wasn't just a pose. They actually really wanted to be good musicians.
Did you support any of the bands?
Oh, I supported them all. Because we were the fakes and they were the real thing. So
would you get bottled off?
Especially with your sort of chops. I was wondering what the thing is, like you're saying, about people caring about their music, wanting to be good. But like, what was the cut-off point? How good were you allowed to be?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Well,
where did you have to put a lid on it?
We could not play
Diminished.
I could play drum fills.
A -7th.
Well, good for Rat Scabies of the Damned, who was like the closest that era ever came to Keith Moon. Just constant, non-stop barrage. That meant it was okay for me to play plenty of tom-tom fills. Yeah. But what was not allowed was love songs, guitar solos, improvisation. The songs had to be on the money, slam, bam, thank you, ma'am. And all these things. Those are the things that we started to bend the rules on just because we lacked
No
discipline.
flash,
But you know what?
This is the sorts of chords had to be
open.
Yeah.
This is interesting in the evolution of pop music because that cleaned out all of the clutter of guitar solos and impro, and that's what the 80s were about. There were no guitar solos in the 80s, maybe a sax solo later on.
Well, I dispute that. I mean, in actually the 80s, certainly in America, in mainstream music, it was actually the age of the guitar solo. It was the age of the Steve Lukather and the Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah, the shredding.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm just thinking, when it was like Ultravox and Duran and Coltrane and Spano, it was the song was everything, wasn't it?
Well, it is ironic that the Punkorama came with burned down everything, and they burned away the guitar solo. They burned out the love songs, and we're left with E, A, and D chords through a Marshall amp with a drum set playing a backbeat. The fundamental to the exact same ingredients that have been there since, the Shadows,
Blues, basically.
Summertime Blues, yeah.
And it was just went back to. It didn't go back to somewhere new. It went back to what was there before. In fact, ultra traditional. I didn't mind. I love Marshall amps and E, A, and D chords. Because even I can play them.
Yeah, but you said before, I remember from years ago, I don't know if I mentioned this in the last interview, that you said the thing you liked about punk was that you liked Jimi Hendrix and no one else seemed to be into that at the time. Everyone wanted to be mellow.
Yes, at the time of the prog rock, I was into blazing, burning down the building, but everyone else was into intellect. And they had this horrible thing that producers would tell me about. It would come in to produce Curved Air and ruin the band. Fatback. That's the thing. We want a fatback. What's a fatback? Well, a fatback is a fat, heavy plod. Whereas I was into crack. That's my vocabulary. The fatback. I shudder to think of it.
But I know. I mean, obviously, you and Sting and getting on with each other is famous. You are not getting on with each other. But it was actually...
By the way, we did 90% of the time. We had a deep emotional bond, but when we would get into the band room more and more, it was about the music, that he has a vision of music that is perfect in his mind, and for him there is only one artistic truth. And to depart from that causes him physical pain. I've seen it. It's just like, Stewart, can't you just see the truth of what I'm saying? And, and I go, look, I'll try.
Opinion.
Yeah, and I recognize that there are many artistic truths. I can do this, I can do that. And I would look at the mirror every morning and say, today I'm going to make Sting happy. Anything he wants, I shall do it, no problem. And by the way, I think he looked in the mirror, today I will let Stewart be Stewart. And it didn't last.
But what I think is it's their yin and yang that made it so exciting as a band. You know, you're if you don't mind me saying, you're a super tiggerish person, right? And Sting is very, thoughtful.
Well, he is, as I like to say, he is quiet and deep. I am noisy and shallow.
Right. but it was that difference that came together that made it so whole and complete. And Andy obviously just sort of orchestrated.
Andy made it sophisticated.
I can't think of another band that had such an important personality on the drums. Other than Keith,
well, Rat Scabies
or Bonham, it's very rare, isn't it? Normally, and especially in a three-piece. But I also think this might be something to chuck out there. Is we all know how important a rhythm section is in a group.
But keep telling them.
But when one one of that rhythm section is the singer and the songwriter as well, there seems to be that makes something much more connected with the rhythm section, doesn't it?
That's a good theory, actually, because.
They're not just supporting the guy who's coming with his song.
Yeah.
They are the song.
He is the song, and I think that actually is a good factor. It's true of any three-piece. I think what you're saying is true if it was the guitarist was also the singer and songwriter. I think it would be the same dynamic.
Maybe it was also
when the singer is a separate guy, it sort of separates it from the music, and the music becomes more background.
Yeah.
But when the singer is the music, there's more, the music goes to the front.
It's probably the only time as well where the bass player doesn't get told what to play, or is allowed to play whatever he wants. Is if he's the guy.
If he's the guy writing the. By the way, Stingo did have to learn those bass parts. They're really tough. Singing and playing
bass is so counterintuitive.
Whoa. Particularly if the bass
even
lines are back to front and upside down.
As the guitar. It's something I've had this with loads of songs. I can pick up a guitar and play a song. It's the easiest thing in the world. Yeah. If I have to do it on the bass, I have to engage a whole other bit.
Yeah, and you really have to.
I know you're having a go at me here. Right?
I'm not having a go at you.
Your job is easy. We should talk about the orchestra.
That's exactly what I want to do next, and which starts with
Deranged. I love that title.
Which starts with a great annoyance on my part, which is that I had to turn it down.
Really?
Turn down some gigs with you.
That's right. You were going to do it.
And I was going to do it. And
I could never afford you in a million years,
Yes, you can. But
in fact, all my musicians are people that I can't afford. And like my Armand Sabaleka, who plays bass for me in America. And Rusty Anderson, who's Paul McCartney's guitarist. I can't afford either of those guys. But we're chuckle buddies. And we ride on the bike path every Sunday morning together. And breakfast is on me for life.
Where? Do you cycle? What do you say?
We along the bike path. It's all flat along the Santa Monica beach in Venice. And
but I don't like this implication that I didn't do it because you couldn't afford me. I didn't do it.
No, that's a brag. That's me bragging.
No, the only reason I didn't do it was because it would have been involved literally the day after when we finished the Source of Full of Secrets tour in Europe, right? Which was 90 shows in 60 days in 29 countries, flying straight to Germany, doing 1 day's rehearsal, and then doing a gig. So
I would have liked to have seen you up there with Stewart playing.
That would have been.
You've never played together, right?
Done more,
You've never played together.
What?
You've never played together?
No, I don't think so.
I think at some Hollywood party years ago.
That kind of rings a bell. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there might have been.
Ringo was
Jeff
there,
Lynne.
and one of those fancy La Frene parties.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, a La Frene related.
So Ringo didn't get up. You did.
No, Ringo did get up.
He did get up.
Both of them.
I can't remember whether I got up first or
You're such
Ringo.
a tart.
Ringo. It's like he's just got a vibe.
Do you know?
He doesn't go.
It's like you.
Well, there's a great video of you
song.
playing his kit, isn't there?
Was that his kit?
Wasn't it his kit?
House kit.
No. I mean, there's a video of you playing of doing a thing where you're.
Oh,
playing
that's
Ringo's
right. There was
kit.
some documentary about Ringo, and they
yeah.
talked to every drummer under the sun, and they had his kit there.
But what's the kit? Yeah, what's the kit like?
I
mean, did you go?
well,
oh my God, it's Ringo, or was it just the way he hits it?
It was just a regular old drum set.
Yeah.
But it was that gray pearl. But I once got a call from George Martin, who was playing the Hollywood Bowl with the L.A. Symphony. And he, for some reason, called me to play drums. Weird choice, but yes, sir. And so
Who can do Ringo?
Yeah, really. And so a couple things. First of all, he sent me the playlist, and I made a little playlist, and I sit down to play drums. And I knew every song without even thinking about it. I just knew the song. Well, I wasn't even particularly a Beatles fan, but it just goes into the musical memory. It's a very strange thing. And the other thing was that I decided, well, if it's going to be Ringo, I'll play a Ringo drum. One tom-tom here, one tom-tom there, ride cymbal, crash cymbal, hi-hat. If you can be a Beatle with that, I should be able to, Yeah. And I discovered something amazing is how much fun it is to play drums without all these drums in the way, without, right here, doom, bang. And it was a kind of an epiphany, actually.
But he was never ever simple with Ringo. Everything follows the song, right? That you can actually take all the music away and just listen to the drum part, and you'll probably guess what it is.
Sometimes, because he used his tom-toms a lot.
Come Together should have that.
Well, young dum diddle-dee.
Publishing for that drum part.
Yeah.
So let's get back onto your deranged Police, because you've got this orchestrated album of Police songs, and you went back to the multi-tracks, I guess. There two questions. I mean, did you discover stuff that you didn't know was there, and
yes,
did you discover, or were you reminded of emotional stuff that maybe
affected
your arrangements?
No, the emotional stuff we've resolved.
Okay, but what I mean by that is it's partly in his songs, right? That his songs, and I think it comes out in your orchestration, they have a dark side that was just barely toyed with on the original singles, but you've kind of mined a bit.
Well, the orchestra has a wider vocabulary, even than Andy Summers, who has, I'm sure he's got 12 fingers, that guy. And the only way we can replace Andy Summers is with a big-ass orchestra. And so that darkness is there in the orchestration, but there's also the brightness too, and the two go together kind of well, I think.
But the point that not the point that Gary was making, but there's a thing you hit on, which I think you mentioned, which is that when you went back, you did find loads of stuff that never which you've now brought out in the orchestra.
Well, they were all improvised because it came from the film score of a movie that I made about the police with my Super 8 footage.
Yeah, fantastic.
And
great fun.
When it actually got picked up by Sundance and had a life and became a real movie, I had to do a score. And as a professional film composer, it had to do what a score has. I don't care if it's the police. I don't care if it's the songs that put me on the map. It needs to take a left here. And so I got out the scalpel. And I also, and once the scalpel was out, hey, this is fun. If those guys had only listened to me, we could have been nobody. So the other thing was that I figured it should be police music, but not the actual record. How about other versions of police stuff, alternative? And so I went in and I found lots of stage improvisations that we did on stage, just stuff so they're Stingish and Andy-ish completely, but they're not on any record you've ever heard. So these derangements, although I've gone away from the original version, it comes back in the chorus. You'll recognize your favorite bits of the song, but there's this other stuff as well. But it's true, there's a few things that I added of my own, but mainly it's based on Sting and Andy and the synergy that we had. So it's all extremely police-ish, but you've never heard it before.
And it gives you a chance to do the drums to the songs
the way
you
they
worked
should
out.
have been.
Because when you recorded, you told us last time, when you recorded almost immediately you heard the song.
That's right.
And then, so you kind of discovered what the drum pattern should be later
That's right.
on.
Yes. And that's true. Sting had this great technique where he would not reveal on an as-needed basis. There's a pregnant pause. We just played my song and everybody's staring at the floor. Okay, anyone else got? Okay, I've got another song. Of course, he always had another song, and it was always better than anything we'd been playing. And he would show Andy the chords, and as they're together, and Andy's fiddling with the harmony, and I kept hearing words such as F sharp minor, whatever that is, and all this musical.
Ninth.
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah. See, these guys are both musicians. They know this stuff. I just I just
stuff.
bang
Don't
shit.
Come on.
And you got three girl singers on there, 3 soul singers.
Yes, 3 girl singers
Who
on
are
the
they? I
mic,
don't
3
know-
soul singers.
I don't know their background.
I can't remember their names, but they're fantastic.
Carmel Helene, Amy Keys, and Ashley Tamara Davis. And they are 3 technically session singers out of L.A., but I've exhorted them, pushed them, invited them, yelled at them, step forward, steal the show, take the mic and own it and rock out, steal my thunder, go ahead. And they have all risen to the occasion. And we've played maybe 25 shows now across America and Europe and so on. And they've grown out of that, because to be a session singer takes much more skill than being a lead singer. Because
20 feet from stardom. Is it?
yeah, the lead singer goes off and does their charismatic thing. The backing singers have to be on the money. So these girls have skills, but behind those skills, they have charisma and just power. And so they've really taken it and run with it. And I'm in love with those 3 women. And they turned me on to a whole genre that I missed as a kid, R&B. I missed it. It was all too straight for me. It was all too mainstream and the gold lame suits. And I was into Jimi Hendrix. You know, maybe James Brown was the closest I ever got to R&B, proper R&B. But now, having discovered the Supremes, the Ronettes, Vandellas, and these girl groups, what an
Those drum
incredible...
grooves.
Yeah, and the drums as well, from those rhythm sections. But that vocal group thing, okay, 4 tops too. But I'm obsessed with the girl groups now, and I'm discovering all those uses of 3 or 4 female voices. And that's where the arrangements for these came from. There was some harmonies that Sting came up with on the day, but I've taken them a little bit beyond.
Yeah, because that's the one thing with the Police, isn't it, where you were actually really stuck, which is in terms of vocal harmonies. You couldn't kind of...
Well, Sting tried to get us to sing. Andy complied and would actually sing. But I can't stand a little. Okay. And
Synchronicity's got a lot on from him. He does.
it's all him. And on the records, it's all him. And he never sat at a
But then
piano.
you had BV's live, didn't you, at that point?
Then one tour we had 3 women on the mic singing, and that I loved it. One tour we had a brass section. Everyone hated that. Yeah. I loved it because I like working with brass, but management, everybody hated it because it's supposed to be 3 guys.
And how big is the orchestra on tour?
Oh, it varies. 48. I have 2 different sizes depending on the thing.
You can't get it all in one van now.
No. Well, no, I don't travel with the orchestra.
Pick the orchestra up, go to rehearsal. It's all in your
No,
diaries.
no,
Then go
no,
to
no.
rehearsal, then go to the NME.
yeah, exactly. There you go. But no, I've figured out the new business model. I don't hire 48 guys. They hire me. The Atlanta Symphony is playing a show.
Revealing your
on-
tax bracket.
I was going to say, yeah, some of your accountant came up
the
with.
Vancouver Symphony, Chicago Symphony, whatever. They're playing a show on Thursday night. They got their calendar, and
I
we're
see.
doing
You're not traveling
Mozart,
with an
we're
orchestra.
doing Shostakovich, we're doing Harry Potter movie night, we're doing living, and
Bond themes.
So they hire me to come play my show with their orchestra.
So you go in, you have a sound check, and this is the first time you've heard those guys.
How y'all doing? We have a 2.5-hour rehearsal. Doors open at 7. You guys know, how long would it take for a rock band to get organized for a show? 6 weeks of shouting and
Sound
negotiating.
checking an orchestra individually.
Yeah.
Violin.
But whatever happens, the sound guy will start off with a bass drum, right?
Yeah.
2, 2, 1, 2, 2, 1, 1, 1, 2.
Doing the timpani.
But they, the front of house guy, the room, the theater, the orchestra, they play there every night. So they're cool with the sound. They got a sound check. Me and the guitar and bass and the ladies, but the orchestra's all set. So I just pull in. I feel like Chuck Berry. When it's the Atlanta Symphony or Nashville or whatever, it's pucka. But sometimes I play Cedar Falls, and I show up and it's the 28-piece version of the orchestra, and it ain't the Chicago Symphony, and I feel like Chuck Berry pulling in, fire up the local high school band and count them in.
Brilliant. Pick up orchestra.
Yeah.
Has Sting and Andy heard this?
I don't think so. I did send Sting the score. which is a huge book, that big, hardback, that thick, with all of the orchestral.
No tapes, just the score.
You spotted that right away, just so I could imagine him going cross-eyed. Both Andy and Sting both read music, but this is a whole different order of.
But you wrote this all yourself. You did it all yourself.
Yeah, I did all the arranging myself.
And when did you learn to write music?
20 years before the Master as a hired gun film composer.
Exactly. And then you come in with what's F sharp minor.
Yeah.
You know what
Well, but orchestra is one of the main tools of film composing. And at first I would write it on a computer, and then I'd hand it off to an orchestrator who'd come back, and I'd go to the orchestra date, and it doesn't sound like John Williams. Well, you've got to put a hairpin on there, and you've got to articulate it. The line isn't da 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 da. It's da 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 da. You got to put that on the page.
Because as in bands, we're used to just telling people that.
E.
But just like
riff in
here
E.
It's got to go dang.
Yeah. Exactly, and you see, the drummer talk, the drummer version of music language is da 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 ba da 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 ba chi unk, and no, well wait a minute, the bodily chi unk, should that be bodily chi unk or bodily chi ba?
You're on tour with this, so
Yes.
people can go and see you for how long? How long are you on tour for?
Oh, it's not on tour because it's down to the schedule of these different orchestras. I have a show here.
You're on tour.
Well, I go home.
No one else is. It's just you.
This is your opportunity.
Well, no, I
to sell
play a
what
show.
you've got.
I go home.
Yeah.
A week or two goes by, then I play another show over here because it's hard enough routing a rock band, but routing to fit all the schedules of these orchestras who have their own season all planned. So it's sporadic.
And when are the diaries coming out?
Diary's coming out in October.
But you can, and they're different versions. Right?
There's all these fancy versions, and it's
you deliver them.
I'll come. The $500 version. You get the book. You get the disc. I call you up and I talk dirty personally. Definitely worth.
You get an angry letter from Sting saying none of this is true.
Sings Cloud's Revenge down the phone at you.
Little extra perks. But the
Cloud's
basic
Revenge
book
is in there, right?
But the basic book is like 50 quid or something. What a normal book costs.
Real primo version is that you come round to the house and you sell them a version out the back of your car.
That's right. Yes.
We have to go because his manager's outside, and apparently you're going to Pebble Mill at 1 now.
Oh, okay.
That still exists. But I guess we've been told we're wrapping up. So
yeah. Okay. Well, pity we didn't have much to talk about.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for listening to all my bullshit.
No, we love it. We love it, Stuart. It's been it's fantastic.
And I'm so glad, by the way, I was with you guys when you guys were first starting out.
I'm going to say thank you.
Now I'm glad to be back when you've got some actual folks listening.
Thank you for that. And also, thank you for coming to the gig. Where was it?
It was
LA. It was LA. Yeah, that was
a fantastic
really great
gig.
night. Yeah, thank you.
A wonderful evening of
really
just those songs with you guys at the front of the stage hamming it up.
Yeah.
Great to see.
Well, we're hamming it up some more this year, aren't we?
Did you hear what he said?
Actually, we might. I know. We are a couple of hams. We might be crossing his path as well because you're playing some Italian open air shows.
Oh, yes.
So are we in July.
Oh, where? What?
So in July.
We'll.
I don't know. Italy places.
Taormina.
You're playing Taormina. We played Taormina 3 years ago.
It's my favourite gig in the world.
Amazing.
It's fantastic. And we'll look up Jim Kerr, who lives there.
Yeah, absolutely. Has a hotel there.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Thank you guys.
Cheers.